They said duty was stronger than desire. They said a duke never defied his blood. But on a winter night so savage it froze England's rivers solid, Sebastian Worthington, Duke of Thornfield, found the one woman he had loved in silence and lost to cruelty, abandoned in the snow, dying, and completely alone. What he did next destroyed every law of honor, lineage, and duty he had sworn to uphold. This is not a story about noble choices. This is a story about impossible ones. Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you, just to know how far our story is going. Let's begin. The winter of 1816 arrived in England like divine wrath. Snow fell in walls so dense that carriages refused to move, and torches became worthless against the endless white fury of the storm. Of the roads connecting London to the northern estates vanished beneath layers of ice, and the grand manors, those monuments to power and privilege, became prisons, isolated from one another by cold and deathly silence. Sebastian Worthington, Duke of Thornfield, had been riding for 3 hours straight. His coat hung heavy with frozen water, his gloves had turned to ice against his skin, his carriage's sides heaved with exhaustion, and still he drove forward into the blizzard. The servants at Thornfield Manor had pleaded with him to stay. "Your Grace, the storm will kill you. This is madness." But Sebastian had ignored them. He always did when it concerned her. Megan rose. Her name lived in him like a wound that never closed, one he had learned to carry, but never to heal. He had not seen her in 3 years, or not since the afternoon she had stood in the conservatory at Whitmore House, her hands shaking as she told him she was going to marry another man. Not since the moment she had looked at him with those desperate, pleading eyes and whispered, "I have no other way, Sebastian. Please, please understand." He had understood, and he had let her go. The wind shrieked, slashing at Sebastian's face like broken glass. His carriage staggered, hooves sliding on the frozen ground, but Sebastian urged him on. He could not stop, not now, not when every fibre of his being screamed that something was catastrophically, unforgivably wrong. The letter had arrived 4 hours ago. Wrinkled, unsigned, frantic. "She has been cast out. No one will look for her. If you ever loved her, come now." Sebastian had known instantly who had sent it. Could one of the maids at Greystone Hall, perhaps someone who had witnessed Megan's suffering and could no longer remain silent. He had been on his carriage within 5 minutes. Now, as the storm raged and the world collapsed into nothing but white and cold and absolute darkness, Sebastian felt his mind slipping to places he had forbidden himself to go. He remembered the wedding. God help him. He remembered every torturous second. The way Megan had walked toward the altar in cream satin, her face drained of all colour. The way her hand had trembled when Lord Green slid the ring onto her finger. The way she had glanced toward the back of the chapel just once, just for a breath, and her eyes had found Sebastian's. And the look in them. "Forgive me. I'm so sorry." Sebastian had smiled through it all. He had lifted his glass at the celebration. He had congratulated Lord Green with flawless dignity. And then he had ridden home, locked himself in his library, and drunk himself into oblivion, so complete he could not recall his own title. That had been 3 years ago. 3 years of convincing himself it was finished, that he had done the honourable thing, that allowing her to marry Lord Green, a man with wealth and standing and connections, had been the right choice. 3 years of lying to himself every single day. The carriage stumbled again, jolting Sebastian back to the present. He blinked hard, forcing himself to concentrate. The cold was vicious now, crawling through every layer of clothing, turning his fingers lifeless inside his gloves. And then he saw it, a shape, dark against the endless white. Sebastian's heart stopped beating. He dismounted before his body fully understood what his eyes had seen, his boots plunging into snow up to his thighs. The cold tore through his coat, through his flesh, straight into his bones. But he felt nothing. Not yet. Because there, collapsed against the base of a leafless oak tree, half buried in snow, was Megan Rose. Sebastian ran. He crashed through the drifts, falling twice, his lungs burning with frozen air, his vision blurring. When he reached her, he dropped to his knees. Megan. Her eyes were closed. Her lips had turned blue. Her skin was grey, almost translucent. She wore only a thin dress, torn at the sleeves, soaked through. Her hair, once always pinned with such care, hung loose and tangled around her shoulders. Sebastian tore off his coat and wrapped it around her, pulling her against him. Megan. Megan. Or look at me. Nothing. He pressed his fingers to her throat, searching desperately for a pulse. For a moment, there was nothing. And then, faint, barely there, he felt it. A heartbeat. She was alive. Sebastian lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. He turned, scanning the white landscape, his mind racing. The nearest village was miles away. Thornfield Manor was even farther. She would not survive the journey. And then he saw it, through the snow, barely visible. A small stone structure, a shepherd's hut, abandoned for the winter. Sebastian carried her toward it, every step a battle against the storm. When he reached the door, he kicked it open and stumbled inside. The hut was freezing, but it blocked the wind. There was a small fireplace, a pile of old wood, a rough wool blanket on a narrow cot. Sebastian laid Megan on the cot and covered her with the blanket. His hands shook as he built a fire, striking flint again and again, until finally, mercifully, a flame caught. Within minutes, the fire was blazing. Sebastian knelt beside Megan, chafing her hands between his, breathing warm air onto her fingers. "Come back," he whispered. "Please, Megan, come back to me." For a long time, nothing happened, and then, slowly, her eyelids fluttered. Sebastian's breath caught. "Megan!" Her eyes opened, confused at first. Then they focused on his face, and she whispered, "Sebastian?" "I'm here," he said, his voice breaking. "You're safe now. I'm here." A tear slid down her cheek. "You came," she breathed. "I will always come for you," Sebastian said. "Always." In the shepherd's hut, Megan's eyes were open now, but she was shaking violently. Sebastian pulled the blanket tighter around her and moved closer to the fire, feeding it more wood. "What happened?" he asked gently. "How did you end up out there?" Megan's voice was barely audible. "He left me." Sebastian went very still. "Who left you?" "Lord Green." Her voice cracked. "He brought me to the road in a carriage. He told the driver to stop. And then he told me to get out." Sebastian's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. "He left you in the storm?" He said I was no longer his concern. Megan closed her eyes. "He said I had failed him, that I was worthless." Rage, white-hot and absolute, flooded through Sebastian. "How long were you out there?" "I don't know. Hours, I think. I tried to walk, but the cold." She trailed off, trembling. "I thought I was going to die." Sebastian took her hand, holding it carefully. "You're not going to die," he said fiercely. "Do you hear me, Megan? You are not going to die." She looked at him, and for the first time, something like hope flickered in her eyes. "Why did you come?" she whispered. "Because I never stopped loving you," Sebastian said, the words raw and unguarded. "Not for a single day." Megan's breath hitched. "Sebastian." "You don't have to say anything," he said quickly. "I don't expect anything from you. I needed you to know." Megan stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached up and touched his face. "I never stopped loving you either," she whispered. Sebastian closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. And in that moment, in a freezing hut in the middle of a deadly storm, the world shifted. Everything he had built, everything he had been taught to value, suddenly meant nothing. The only thing that mattered was the woman in front of him. The fire crackled as the storm raged outside. Megan was warming slowly, the colour returning to her lips, but she still shivered, her body struggling to recover from the cold. Sebastian sat beside her on the cot, his arm around her shoulders, sharing his warmth. "Tell me what happened," he said quietly. "All of it." Megan was silent for a long time. Then, haltingly, she began to speak. "The marriage was never what I thought it would be," she said. "Lord Green he was kind at first, attentive. But after the wedding, everything changed." Sebastian listened, his expression hardening with every word. "He never struck me," Megan continued. "But he didn't need to. He controlled everything. It was what I wore, where I went, who I spoke to. He told me I was stupid, that I was lucky he had married me at all, that no one else would have wanted me." Her voice broke. "I started to believe him, Sebastian. I started to think it was true." Sebastian's hand tightened on her shoulder. "It was not true," he said, his voice low and fierce. "None of it was true." "I tried to be what he wanted," Megan whispered. "I tried so hard, but nothing was ever good enough. And then, last week, I made a mistake. I spoke to one of the guests at dinner without his permission, and he decided he was finished with me." "So he abandoned you in a snowstorm," Sebastian said flatly. "He said it would look like an accident," Megan said, her voice hollow. "No one would question it. The unfortunate death of a duke's wife, all lost in the storm." Sebastian felt something cold and dark settle in his chest. Lord Green had not just abandoned Megan, he had tried to kill her. "You're never going back to him," Sebastian said. Megan looked at him, fear and hope warring in her eyes. "Sebastian, he's my husband. Legally, I belong to him." "I don't care," Sebastian said. "You're not going back." "But what can we do?" Megan asked desperately. "He's powerful. He has connections. If he wants me back, he'll find a way." Sebastian looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "Come with me." Megan blinked. "What?" "Come with me," Sebastian repeated. "Leave this behind. All of it. We'll go somewhere he can't find you. Somewhere you'll be safe." "Sebastian, you don't understand," Megan said, shaking her head. "If you help me, you'll lose everything. Your title, your estates, or your reputation. Society will destroy you." "Then let them," Sebastian said simply. Megan stared at him. "You can't mean that." "I've spent my entire life doing what was expected of me," Sebastian said. "I followed every rule. I honored every duty. And the only thing it ever brought me was regret." He took her hands in his. "I let you go once, Megan. I won't make that mistake again." Tears spilled down Megan's cheeks. "You would give up everything," she whispered. "For me?" "Everything," Sebastian said, without hesitation. Megan closed her eyes, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Then yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll come with you." Sebastian pulled her into his arms, holding her as she cried, and for the first time in 3 years, he felt something he had thought was lost forever. Peace. The storm began to ease near dawn. Sebastian and Megan had stayed awake through the night, talking in low voices by the fire. Megan told him things she had never told anyone. About the loneliness, the fear, the slow erosion of her sense of self under Lord Green's control. I stopped recognizing myself, she said quietly. I would look in the mirror and see a stranger. Someone small, someone afraid, someone I hated. You were surviving, Sebastian said. That's not weakness, Megan. That's strength. It didn't feel like strength, Megan said. It felt like drowning. Sebastian reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You're not drowning anymore, he said softly. Megan looked at him, and slowly, tentatively, she leaned forward. Sebastian met her halfway. Their lips touched, gentle at first, then deeper. Megan's hand came up to rest against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her palm. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. I've wanted to do that for so long, Sebastian murmured. So have I, Megan whispered. They stayed like that, foreheads touching, until the first light of dawn crept through the cracks in the walls. We need to go, Sebastian said reluctantly, before someone finds us. Megan nodded. They gathered what little they had. Sebastian's coat, the blanket from the cot, a few pieces of wood for the journey. As they stepped outside, the world was transformed. The storm had passed, leaving behind a landscape of blinding white beauty. But Sebastian knew the danger was far from over. Lord Green would not let this go. And when he discovered Megan was alive, he would come for her. Sebastian helped Megan onto his carriage, then swung up behind her, wrapping his arms around her to keep her steady. Where are we going? Megan asked. South, Sebastian said. To the coast. We'll find a ship. And then? Then we disappear, Sebastian said. Completely. Megan leaned back against him, and Sebastian felt her relax for the first time. I trust you, she said, quietly. Sebastian pressed a kiss to the top of her head. I won't let anything happen to you, he promised. I swear it. And as they rode away from the shepherd's hut, leaving behind the only lives they had ever known, Sebastian felt something unexpected. Freedom. They rode for 2 days, stopping only when absolutely necessary. Sebastian knew they were being followed. He could feel it, a prickling awareness at the back of his neck. Lord Green had men searching for them. It was only a matter of time before they were found. On the 3rd day, they reached a small village near the coast. Sebastian secured lodging at a modest inn, paying the innkeeper, Jake Tucker, extra for discretion. No questions, Sebastian said, pressing coins into the man's hand. Jake Tucker nodded, pocketing the money without a word. In their room, Megan collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. How much farther? She asked. 1 more day, Sebastian said. There's a merchant ship leaving tomorrow evening. I've arranged passage. Megan sat up slowly. Sebastian, once we leave England, there's no coming back. You understand that, don't you? I understand, Sebastian said. You'll lose your title, Megan pressed. Your inheritance. Everything your family built. I know. And you're truly willing to do that? Sebastian knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. Megan, I have spent my entire life being the Duke of Thornfield, he said. I have attended every function, fulfilled every obligation, made every decision based on what was expected of me. And I have been miserable. He looked into her eyes. For the first time in my life, I am choosing something for myself, he said. I am choosing you. And I am choosing freedom. That is worth more to me than any title ever could be. Megan's eyes filled with tears. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, Sebastian said. He kissed her then, slow and deep, pouring everything he felt into it. When they finally pulled apart, Megan smiled through her tears. Then let's go, she said. But let's leave all of this behind and start over. Sebastian smiled back. Together, he said. Together, Megan agreed. That night, as they lay together in the small inn room, Sebastian held Megan close and allowed himself to imagine their future. A life without titles or expectations. A life where he was simply Sebastian, and she was simply Megan. A life built on choice, not obligation. It was terrifying, and it was perfect. If you're still here, if this story is gripping you the way it's gripping me, then I need your help. These stories only survive if you share them, if you subscribe, if you comment and let me know where you are watching from. That's what keeps this channel alive. Please take 5 seconds right now. Hit subscribe, share this video, comment your city. It matters more than you know. Thank you for being here. Oh, now let's see what happens next. The next morning there was a knock at the door. Sebastian opened it to find a man in military uniform standing in the hallway. Captain Connor Hicks. Sebastian recognized him immediately. He served under Lord Green's command. "Your Grace," Captain Hicks said, his voice neutral. "May I have a word?" Sebastian's hand moved instinctively to the knife at his belt, but he forced himself to remain calm. "What do you want?" "I'm here to deliver a message," Captain Hicks said. "May I come in?" Sebastian hesitated, then stepped aside. Captain Hicks entered the room, his eyes moving briefly to Megan, who had risen from the bed, her face pale. "Mrs. Green," Captain Hicks said, nodding to her. "Captain," Megan said quietly. Captain Hicks turned back to Sebastian. "Lord Green knows you're here," he said bluntly. "He sent men to retrieve his wife." "She's not going back to him," Sebastian said. "That's not for you to decide, Your Grace," Captain Hicks said. "She is legally his wife. He has every right to reclaim her." "He left her to die in a snowstorm," Sebastian said, his voice hard. "He has no rights where she's concerned." Captain Hicks's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Be that as it may," he said, "Lord Green is a powerful man. He has friends in Parliament, connections in the courts. If you continue down this path, he will destroy you." "Let him try," Sebastian said. Captain Hicks studied him for a long moment. "You're willing to lose everything?" he asked. "Your title, your estates, your place in society?" "Yes," Sebastian said without hesitation. Captain Hicks glanced at Megan again, then back at Sebastian. "I see," he said quietly. There was a long silence. Then Captain Hicks said, "The ship you've arranged passage on leaves at sunset. I would suggest you be on it." Sebastian frowned. "What?" "I said," Captain Hicks repeated slowly, "you should be on that ship at sunset." Understanding dawned. Captain Hicks was giving them a warning, and time. "Why are you helping us?" Sebastian asked. Captain Hicks's jaw tightened. "Because I was there the night Lord Green left her in the snow," he said quietly. "I tried to stop him. He ordered me to stand down." He looked at Megan. "I should have refused that order. I didn't. That's something I'll have to live with." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "You have until sunset," he said. "After that, I can't help you." "Thank you," Megan said softly. Captain Hicks nodded once, then left. When the door closed, Sebastian turned to Megan. "We need to leave now," he said. "But the ship doesn't leave until—" "We can't trust that he was alone," Sebastian interrupted. "If Lord Green knows we're here, there could be others coming." Megan nodded, already moving to gather their few belongings. Within minutes, they were on the road again, riding hard toward the coast. As they rode, Sebastian felt the weight of what he was about to do settle over him. He was leaving England, abandoning his title, walking away from everything he had ever been. And he felt no regret at all, only relief. They reached the docks as the sun was setting. The merchant ship was already preparing to depart, sailors moving across the deck, shouting orders to one another. Sebastian helped Megan aboard, then turned to pay the captain, Corey Roberts, a weathered man with sharp eyes and a shrewd expression. "You're late," Corey Roberts said. "We had complications," Sebastian said. Corey Roberts looked at him, then at Megan, then back at Sebastian. "You're running from something," he observed. "That's our business," Sebastian said. "It becomes my business if it endangers my ship," Corey Roberts said bluntly. Sebastian met his eyes. "Will be no trouble," he said. "You have my word." Corey Roberts studied him for a moment longer, then shrugged. "Your word and double the fare," he said. Sebastian handed over the coins without argument. Corey Roberts counted them, then nodded. "Welcome aboard," he said. "We sail in 10 minutes." Sebastian took Megan's hand and led her below deck to the small cabin they had been assigned. It was cramped and dark, with barely enough room for the narrow bunk and a single chair, but to Sebastian, it felt like sanctuary. "We made it," Megan said, sinking onto the bunk. "We made it," Sebastian agreed. But as the ship pulled away from the dock and England began to disappear behind them, Sebastian felt a strange hollowness in his chest. He was leaving behind his entire life. His home, his title, his legacy. Everything he had been raised to believe mattered. Megan must have seen something in his expression, because she reached out and took his hand. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. Sebastian looked at her, at the woman he loved, or the woman he had chosen over everything else. "Yes," he said, and he meant it. "I'm all right." Megan smiled and pulled him down beside her on the bunk. They sat together in the dimness, listening to the creak of the ship and the splash of the waves, and for the first time in years, Sebastian felt truly, completely free. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And that was enough. 3 months later, the letter arrived. Sebastian and Megan had settled in a small village on the coast of France, living under assumed names. Sebastian had found work as a tutor for the children of a local merchant. Megan had taken in mending and laundry. It was a simple life, a quiet life, and Sebastian had never been happier. But the past, it seemed, was not finished with him. The letter was delivered by Edward Conway, a London solicitor, who tracked them down through a contact in Calais. Sebastian opened it with a sense of dread. Inside was a formal document, stamped with the seal of the House of Lords. It was a decree of disinheritance. Sebastian Worthington, formerly Duke of Thornfield, was hereby stripped of his title, his lands, and his inheritance. All properties and holdings would pass to his cousin, Gabriel Bray. The reason given was abandonment of duty and moral disgrace. Sebastian read the document twice, then set it aside. "What is it?" Megan asked, coming to stand beside him. "They've taken the title," Sebastian said quietly. Megan's hand went to her mouth. "Oh, Sebastian." "It's all right," Sebastian said, pulling her into his arms. "I expected this. But everything you had—" "Everything I had was never really mine," Sebastian interrupted gently. "It was borrowed, inherited, built on obligations I never chose." He looked into her eyes. "This life," he said, gesturing to the small cottage around them. "This life is mine. I chose it. I built it. And that makes it worth more than any title ever could." Megan's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Don't be," Sebastian said. "I'm not." And he wasn't. The title was gone. The estates were gone. The life he had known was gone. But Megan was here, and that was everything. Time passed. Sebastian and Megan built their life together, piece by piece. They were married in a small chapel by a priest who asked no questions, with only the innkeeper's wife, Liliana, as witness. Megan took Sebastian's surname, though it carried no title now. She was simply Megan Worthington, and Sebastian was simply Sebastian. No duke, no obligations, no expectations, just a man who loved his wife and worked to provide for her. They had little money, but they had enough. Their cottage was small, but it was warm. Their meals were simple, but they never went hungry. And they were happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way Sebastian had never imagined possible. One evening, as they sat together by the fire, Megan resting her head on Sebastian's shoulder, she said quietly, "Do you ever regret it?" "Regret what?" Sebastian asked. "Leaving. Losing the title, giving up everything for me." Sebastian turned to look at her. "Never," he said firmly. "Not for a single moment." "But you had so much." "I had nothing," Sebastian interrupted. "A title I didn't choose, an inheritance that came with chains, a life built entirely on what other people expected of me." He took her hand. "Here, what with you I have something real, something I chose, and that's worth more than all the estates in England." Megan smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too," Sebastian said. And in that moment, in their small cottage by the sea, Sebastian felt a contentment so profound it took his breath away. This was the life he was meant to live. This was the person he was meant to be. Not a duke, just Sebastian. And that was more than enough. 5 years later, another letter arrived. This time it was from England, from Gabriel Bray. Sebastian opened it with little interest. He had not thought of England, or the title or any of it, in years. The letter was brief. Gabriel Bray had died. He had no heirs. Under the terms of the original inheritance, the title and estates were now offered back to Sebastian. But all he had to do was return to England and reclaim them. Sebastian read the letter once, then set it down on the table. Megan looked up from where she was mending one of their daughter's dresses. Eleanor, their 5-year-old daughter, was playing in the garden, her laughter drifting through the open window. "What is it?" Megan asked. "An offer," Sebastian said. "They want to give me back the title." Megan went very still. "What will you do?" she asked quietly. Sebastian looked at her, at the life they had built, at the daughter they had raised together, at the small, warm cottage that was more home to him than any grand manor had ever been. He picked up the letter and walked to the fireplace, and without hesitation, he threw it into the flames. Megan watched, her eyes wide, as the paper caught fire and curled into ash. "You're not going back," she said. It wasn't a question. "No," Sebastian said simply. He turned to face her. "That life is over. This is my life now. This is where I belong." Megan rose and crossed to him, wrapping her arms around him. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. Sebastian held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the warmth of her body against his. Outside, Eleanor's laughter rang out again, bright and joyful, and Sebastian knew, with absolute certainty, that he had made the right choice. 5 years ago, today, and every day in between. He had chosen love over duty, freedom over obligation, Megan over everything else, and he would make that choice again, 1,000 times over, without a moment's hesitation. Because this, right here, was everything that mattered. This was home. Years later, when their son Charles was old enough to understand, he asked Sebastian about the title. "Father, grandmother told me you used to be a duke. Is that true?" Sebastian looked at his son, at this bright, curious boy who knew nothing of titles or estates, or the weight of inherited obligation. "Yes," Sebastian said. "I was." "Why did you stop?" Charles asked. Sebastian glanced at Megan, who was sitting nearby, a small smile on her face. Because, Sebastian said, I found something more important. What? Charles asked. Sebastian pulled his son into his lap. I found your mother, he said, and I chose her. And then I found you and your sister, and I chose you too. And that, Charles, was the best decision I ever made. Charles considered this for a moment. I'm glad you chose us, he said seriously. Sebastian smiled. So am I, he said. So am I. And as Megan reached over to take his hand, and Eleanor came running in from the garden, and Charles snuggled closer against his chest, Sebastian felt a peace so complete it seemed to fill every corner of his being. He had been a duke once, but he was a husband and a father now, and that was infinitely better. Thank you for staying with us through Sebastian and Megan's journey. If this story touched your heart, if you felt every choice and every sacrifice they made, then please, I'm asking you to do 3 things right now. First, subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story like this. Second, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And third, comment below with where you're watching from. I want to say hello to you. I want to know this story reached you. That's what makes all of this worthwhile. Thank you for watching. Until the next story, take care of your heart. Bye and good night.